So if you do end up having a blown head gasket, you could kiss your engine goodbye. Alright, in this video we'll go over 7 reasons why your car might be overheating. Alright, so there's 3 main components of every cooling system. Coolant level, coolant flow, and coolant heat dissipation, which is basically the ability for the coolant to get rid of its own heat. And any disturbances in any of these 3 will cause your engine to overheat. Okay, so we'll start with the first one, which is coolant level. It could be just as simple as filling up your expansion tank or the radiator. So once you filled it up to the full line, that could be the fix to your overheating engine. But most of the time there's always a reason why you're low on coolant. So if you constantly have to fill up your reservoir tank or your radiator, then most likely you will have a coolant leak. It's normal that you do end up missing a few ounces of coolant, you know, after a few months of driving. It does eventually evaporate. But if you notice that you're missing a lot and constantly have to top it off, then you do have a coolant leak. So depending on how complex your cooling system is on your car, the leak could be from the expansion tank, the hoses. Make sure you check all your hoses. Thermostat housing, your radiator, or your water pump. So if you notice you have coolant leaking in your garage floor or in your parking lot, then most likely you do have a leak. So the leaks could be coming from the gaskets that are worn out, any hoses that are cracked, the thermostat housing that is cracked. So you'll have to look around your car and see where it's coming from. And if the coolant leak isn't obvious and you're still missing coolant, it could be an internal leak. And what I mean by that is by a blown head gasket. So a head gasket is the gasket that sits between your short block and the cylinder head. And if that's blown, then coolant could be going into the combustion chamber, and that's where the missing coolant might be. A blown head gasket is pretty obvious since it's going to leave probably misfire codes, or your engine is going to be running pretty rough. But not all cars, because I've seen some cars that run perfectly normal even with a blown head gasket, depending on the car. So if you do end up having a blown head gasket, you could kiss your engine goodbye. So if you're going to do the repair yourself, it's going to be probably labor intensive. And if the cylinder head has been warped, you're going to have to send it out to a machine shop to have it flattened. So that is the worst case scenario, an internal leak. And that's it for the first component, which is coolant level. Okay, now we'll move on to the second component, which is coolant flow. Any disturbances in the coolant flow will cause your engine to overheat. So the 2 main disturbances of coolant flow is a failed water pump. So the job of the water pump is to move coolant around the engine through the short block and the cylinder head. And if these propellers here, or the fins here, actually break off, then the water pump is spinning from the outside, but on the inside it's not actually moving any coolant. And since these are plastic, this failure does happen often. But if your car does have good old metal fins or propellers here, then that failure isn't so common. But nowadays they're mostly plastic to save money. Alright, and the second type of disturbance to the coolant flow is your thermostat. So the thermostat stays closed when you start up your engine until the engine warms up to operating temperature. And after that it opens up so the coolant can flow. So if your thermostat is stuck closed, you will end up overheating your engine. And there's many other ones that could cause a disturbance to coolant flow. Either the hoses are clogged, or the heater core is clogged, or the radiator is clogged. But these are a bit more rare. The 2 main ones are the stuck closed thermostat and the water pump propeller that break off. And the last component is coolant heat dissipation. So since the coolant takes away the heat from the engine, so now it has to get rid of its own heat, and that's where the radiator comes in. So the problems that could happen to a radiator is if it's clogged up or if it's leaking, but these kind of fall into the other 2 categories, the other 2 components I mean. And what helps get rid of the coolant heat are the radiator fans, and as you're driving, the wind hitting your front bumper. So a reason why you might overheat is that your cooling fans don't come on. So a malfunction in your cooling fans or a faulty cooling fan will be noticed when you're at a red light. If your car is only overheating at a red light, then that is your clue, which is the radiator fan. Since when you're driving, the wind actually helps cool the radiator, and then when you're stopped at a red light, there's no more wind hitting your front bumper, going through your grille. So that's when the cooling fans come on and they help cool the coolant in the radiator. So that's where you might notice your overheating condition is at a red light. Then you know the cooling fans isn't coming on. And that's pretty much it for that component, the coolant's ability to get rid of its own heat. And that's mainly the only reason why is the radiator fan not coming on, or in some cases where your front bumper covered in dirt or debris that may cause like a blockage for the wind when you're driving down the road. But that's a bit more rare. And the last reason why your car is overheating is because you're a really bad car owner. Alright, that last part wasn't true. I'm sure you guys are the best car owners on this planet. But anyways, it's this guy here, the engine coolant temperature sensor. It doesn't really fall in the categories of the other components. So the main issue that could happen with this sensor is a malfunction. So either it's gonna tell the engine computer that you are overheating but you're not, or vice versa. And if you do have a engine coolant temperature sensor malfunction, the car is probably gonna throw a check engine light related to that sensor. So yeah, either sometimes this sensor is lying to you or it's telling the truth, but so the only clue I could give you for diagnosing a bad engine coolant temperature sensor is if you end up starting your car in the morning and your temperature gauge shoots up right away, either at operating temperature or even past operating temperature, and it's telling you that you're overheating. But you know deep down in your heart that you're not overheating because you just started the car. So that might be the cause. The engine coolant temperature sensor is lying to the computer. And that's pretty much it for any reasons your car might be overheating. And for sure there might be other reasons, since not all cooling systems are made the same. So I hope this video was helpful to kind of help you diagnose your overheating issue. And if you have any comments, questions, leave them in the comments below. And if you have any other reasons why your car might be overheating that I've missed in this video, so list them in the comments below. And that's it. See you guys next time.